Hi, this is Krunal Nayak here again in our podcast, My Australian Journey. Our today's guest is Dr. Chris Malika Bhadra. And before I introduce her, I know the introduction is not enough from my end. So let's get introduced with Dr. Chris. I will welcome Dr. Chris. Hello, Dr. Chris. How are you today?
Afternoon, Krunal. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I am good, thank you. It's pleasure having you here, and thank you for sparing little time for our audience and ourselves. So please,
It's a
we
pleasure.
welcome you in our show, and we will talk about your migration journey, your individual growth, and whatever happened. So I've introduced yourself a little bit, but could you please introduce yourself to our audience in details,
Thanks,
please?
Krunal. You know what? In the entire journey, I've realized this is the most difficult question one can ever ask anyone,
Oh
but
my
I'll
God,
try my very best.
please.
But before I begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting, the people of the Kulin Nation,
Mhm.
and I would also like to present my respect to the elders, past, present, and emerging. Uh, I think I've got a very normal journey. I was born and raised in Delhi, India. I've done my engineering I've done my BTech in biotechnology from Calcutta, and then I went to do my MTech in biomedical engineering from NIT Rourkela. And after that, I got a fully funded scholarship to pursue my PhD from Swinburne University in Melbourne. And that kind of landed me in Melbourne in 2013. So it's been a decade that I'm here. Post PhD, I was involved in a few postdoctoral projects in Melbourne as well, and after that, I went on to join a different organization. And when I'm not working, I am the founder and host of two Melbourne-based podcasts. One is called Corporate Chats, where we talk about all the stigmatized issues in the South Asian community. And the other one is Durdeshe Bangla because I'm a Bengali. So that was meant to specifically speak with the NRIs who miss their country but who are Bengali speaking people.
So you are telling me that you are a PhD graduate, you are a podcaster, you are
Yes.
anti-racial activist, and you're a dancer. And
Yeah.
so, how one person can have that many qualities?
Um, I think if there's a will, there's a way, Krunal. I think many people I know do much more than I do myself. So it's not that I'm comparing anyone against myself. It's that self comparison that I somewhere kind of draw. That I've learned dancing. I've learned dancing ever since I was 10 years of age. So
Hmm.
when I came to Melbourne, my mom said, "Why don't you just use it?" And I was like, "Yeah, right," because you can't just keep doing work and come back home and not engage in any other activities, right? Because you just then lose your sanity somewhere. And especially when we had COVID, these extracurricular activities kept me going. They kept me sane. So if you can just manage your calendar a little bit and if you just have the drive, I think it's just manageable. Everybody does it. So yeah.
Great, excellent. No, no, not everybody does. There are only few people who do that. So okay, and you're one of them. Great. So tell me about that. How you so you were in India, you were in Delhi before, you Bengali,
Yeah.
so Bengali background. What
Yeah.
what made you to come to Australia? Why you chose Australia and not any other country?
Kunal, when I was doing my MTech, right, that time I had that opinion that I'm not going to sit for any job, any IT job. Although I did sit for the interviews, but my aim was always to go for a PhD.
Right.
And I, that time, took that decision that this is a good step for me. This is the right stage where I can move out of the country to just gain that international experience, right?
Hmm.
Because getting a PhD application approved for and with fully funded scholarship is not that easy. You really
Right.
need to work on your credentials
Yep.
and scores and all that
Yep.
needs to be
Yep.
done. For some reason, I was never inclined towards the US. I
Mm-hmm.
never wanted that, never had the drive of, oh, I want to go to the US and all that.
Right.
We did look at Singapore and UK, and I think we were also looking at Japan for some reason. But when this scholarship came through, I was like, that's it, I'm going. And
Perfect.
that's how I landed here.
All right. And so you have other countries in your mind, but when you got the first opportunity from Australia. Okay. So
Yes.
let's talk about that. You saying that getting a PhD, fully funded PhD from Australia is really hard. So we have a lot of viewers who are interested in doing PhD in Australia, and when it
Hmm.
comes to paying the fees, it's enormous fees, right? When you are
Yes.
coming as an
Yes.
international student. But let's say if someone wants to do whatever you have done, so is there any path you can guide to our viewers, please?
Um, I would just say, Krunal, that look, I've not done any international course where I had to fund myself, right? I was maybe lucky that way that my course was taken care of. If anyone who's listening to me right now who wants to pursue a higher degree by research in Australia,
Hmm.
I would just say that you have to prepare your SOP, which is a statement of purpose that really needs to reflect your previous work, and it needs to reflect your drive to do that work.
Hmm.
You need to put on your ideas, because here how we work or how these academic professors work is they want to see your initiative. They don't want to be leading you all the time. They don't want to be spoon feeding you all the time. Of course, they'll
Right.
give you guidance, but if you give them a little bit of initiative, if you show them that you're willing to take that first step, they like it even better. Because
Yep.
in the end, we have to remember it's my degree, it's not their degree,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
And obviously, when I was being evaluated, they looked at my scores from class 10th, year 12, how much did I score for my bachelor's, master's. So if you have to get a scholarship, you have to ensure that you've done those courses from reputable institutes. Because from what I remember, every international university has their own individual way of ranking Indian institutes. For
Correct.
example, if you're coming from IIT, they have a different score. If you, I had my master's from NIT, so I believe I was placed in a different category.
Hmm.
So all of these things are taken into consideration when your application is evaluated. So for anyone willing to come here, just make sure on your end your CV is really updated, your statement of purpose, and your research proposal is very strong, because that work, the scope of the work really needs to be visible to the professor, that what you've done and what would you like to do, and how would you like to add value to that professor's lab
Correct.
if and when they choose to take you.
Yep, yep, absolutely. Very insightful. Great. Because yes, a lot of PhD graduates who are interested in doing PhDs, and maybe they want to continue their PhDs here, and they get stuck with this research proposal. Like when they
Yeah,
come to me and ask me that what is a research proposal? And when I explain, they have a clue, but they don't have a clue what to write in there.
right,
So,
right.
could you please guide a simple structure that what the research proposal should include?
I think the first thing what you need to do, Prunal, is you need to look up in each professor's individual profile, because every university has individual profile listed,
Mm-hmm.
and every academic professor will have their labs also listed on the university website.
Right.
Go have a visit at their lab web page, look at what the kind of work is being doing, the previous work they have published. If possible, talk to one of their postdoctoral researchers, and then try to weave that story to what you're doing,
Hmm.
and probably what is the extra outcome that you can give to the group and the lab if you're chosen. Of course,
Right.
your word cannot be the source of truth, they will
Mhm.
edit it.
Mhm.
But if they see that you've taken that extra mile to look into their work, you've read their papers, you've tried to kind of get these to marry to each other,
Mhm.
that will definitely get you some extra points.
Great, great, excellent. So let's say when you have decided now to go to Australia, you have done this all hard work to get into
Yeah.
university, and when so what is have you ever been to any other country before? Tell me about this. Sorry, I'm just switching the question. But
Before
before
coming to
Australia, you came to
Australia,
Australia, yes?
no,
No,
nah,
no.
nah.
So
From
it was
India
your
directly, I landed.
so there
Yeah.
was a first foreign country. So how was the perception and what was the reality? Could you please do some comparison?
To be honest, Kunal, when I got that scholarship, I had another standing PhD offer from NIT Rourkela as well. So
Mhm.
my mom was a little skeptical that and I don't have any family in Australia. Now
Right,
I have a lot of friends who are family, but back then we didn't have anyone, right?
right, right.
So my mom was very skeptical that you're moving to a new country. How will you manage? It's a different culture. And at that time, we were hearing many stories of Australia being a racist country. I'll come to that later if
Mm.
we have that time.
Mm-hmm.
But somewhere in my mind, Kunal, I was like determined that, look, mom, I have to go, right?
Yep.
This is my chance. If I don't feel like I'm fitting in, give me 6 months, I'll come back. But let me go right now. I have to go and see. And when I landed here, I didn't feel nervous. Many people say you get a culture shock. I never had that culture shock.
Hmm.
I was just excited, and it was like all the dream coming true,
Right.
because all the while I was corresponding with my supervisor via emails.
Yeah.
And suddenly there is this amazing human sitting in front of me, and she has changed my life. She has changed me in so many ways.
Wow.
She's sitting in front of me. I was getting goosebumps in a very good way.
Hmm.
So I never felt intimidated. I never felt nervous. Yes, I was a horrible cook back then. I had to learn cooking for myself because that's a life
Uh,
skill. I
yeah.
had that. But yeah, and after a while, when my parents realized that this is okay, she can manage,
Hmm.
they were also comfortable. But that kind of there was never any negative mindset anywhere that, oh, will I be able to make it, or will I be able to fit in?
All right. So you are always with the enthusiasm that okay, it will be a new country, new place to explore and
Yeah,
all that.
yeah,
So
yeah.
adventurous kind of nature. No, not quite.
If you refer to adventure, like I wouldn't be kind of driving into the mountains by
No,
myself.
no,
I'm
not
not
that
that
sort
kind.
of adventure. No, but this is
But this, I would, yeah,
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 entrepreneurship,
yeah.
entrepreneur really, or how you say that, entrepreneurial approach,
Entrepreneurship maybe, but
approach.
in my mind, I was like, I've been given this opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I have to at least try.
Right.
If I can't fit in this 6 months or 1 year, I will pack my bags and come back. But
Okay.
if I don't give myself 6 months, then I
Mm.
never tried. I didn't know what it was on the other side.
Yep, yep. So after like okay, you came with a mindset with at least trying out for 6 months. So
Yeah.
when that thought converted into staying here permanently.
Hmm. Actually, this is very interesting, Krunal. I'm the only child, right?
Right.
After 1 year, it was my mother who said, "You have to settle there.
Mm.
You have to make your way. You have to settle there. We will help you in everything. We are always here,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to see how you can settle there.
Right. And what
So
was that?
don't even think." It was just when I was like kind of almost finishing up my PhD, I was looking around. My mom always pushed me that you've been given this wonderful opportunity. It's a wonderful country. Make the best of it.
Hmm.
See how you can live there. See how you can work and, associate with people, network out. So that constant drive also supported my mindset. So I
Right.
have to thank my parents here.
No, that's great. And has mom visited you here in Australia?
That's the most unfortunate part, Kunal. She
Oh,
can't. She can't fly because she is claustrophobic.
all
So
right.
my dad has, but
Right.
my mom, yeah. So I make sure I visit my family every year. But thanks to COVID, this time I went after 3.5 years. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's life.
Right.
It is what it is.
We can't change, right? Okay. So after coming to Australia, what is your few of the favorite things about Australia?
So many, but I try to.
To list a few.
Sorry, my
It's
laptop
okay.
is just, yeah.
It's all right.
I think if I can turn the question around, the
Mm-hmm.
one thing that I don't like about Melbourne specifically is the weather.
Right.
Right?
Oh
This,
yeah.
I
Who
am not a
does?
winter person
Who
at
does?
all.
Tell me.
Now some of my friends are like, "Oh, I love the winter. I said, no,
Oh.
I don't. I'm a very
Mm.
summer person. So
Mm.
these 6, 7 months, I'm like, oh my god. But thankfully, it doesn't snow. For sure, if it was snowing in Melbourne, I would have left the very next day. I can't.
Right.
But apart from that, the multiculturalism, Kunal, the love that I've received from people who didn't know me before, the
Right.
various platforms that opened up to me, the
Mm.
various sorts of resources that came up to me where I could speak up and be myself, it's just been amazing. It's just amazing.
Mm.
I just can't put that onto a paper of what are the things that I love. I think I love almost everything, barring the weather.
Mm. Mm. No, great. Great. All right. So, like, from starting to when you finish your masters to when you
Right.
settle in Australia, so you become a migrant, you become a resident of
Hmm.
Australia. Could you
Right.
please describe the journey in few words?
Um, so when I finished my PhD, and then all my seniors were getting their PRs, and after that I was like, okay, I'll also file my PR. So I prepared all of the application. Back then, I was eligible under a different stream. I think Life Sciences Australia, something like that.
Hmm.
I submitted my application, and the very next day, the news came out that the government had revamped the categories, and the category that I had filled in my paperwork in was no longer existent.
Oh,
And I'm sitting and thinking that, okay, then this is the end of my journey now. I don't know what to do. I don't know which
right.
else category I'm applicable for.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's it. This is it. After 4 years, I'm going back home.
Right.
And there was another postdoctoral invitation that I just had said no to
Mm-hmm.
because I was hoping that this would work.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sitting at crossroads that I've just said no to a postdoctoral invitation. My visa is like technically on the train now. What do I do?
Mm-hmm.
One of my colleagues said that look, another colleague's husband is a PM migration agent. Why don't you talk to him?
Right.
Well, he has been a lifesaver. When I went to him, he said, look, we'll take one step at a time.
Mm-hmm.
First, let's just file your work visa, the postgraduate work visa.
Right.
That gives you time for 2 years. Then we'll sort out what to do with your paperwork. I
Mm-hmm.
got that. When I went for the medicals, right, it had that physical examination. So the nurse took me and I was doing everything by myself. Parents are in Delhi, but all they can just do is listen to you and give you that mental support. But going to the medical, getting yourself tested, for the first time, it was very overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
The nurse just said, you know what, just get dressed and we'll have a chat. I was like, what is wrong? And she had a very serious face.
Oh.
She is filling up the application and I'm like, what happened, doctor? Is everything okay? She's like, no, your lymph nodes are swollen.
Mm.
Did you ever have tuberculosis or cough and cold? If not, it could be cancer on my face.
Whoa. Whoa.
And sitting right there, I'm like, oh my God. Right back at that instant, the whole dream of getting the PR was just in the flash, right? Right now,
No.
I'm thinking, am I actually okay? I come out, I'm like howling, and I'm saying to my mother, I don't know what to do.
Hmm.
Then my PR migration business said, look, if you have I used to see a doctor in Swinburne Uni.
Mm-hmm.
He said, talk to her and see if she can give you a medical certificate. I run down to her. She looks at my lymph nodes and she said, look, it's all normal. Or most of our South Asians, we have these lymph nodes, which are generally like that. Don't worry. She gives me a certificate saying everything is fine. Within the next day, I get my postgraduate visa.
Wow.
But that mental hassle, Krunal, I can't kind of even begin to
Mm.
explain what me and my entire family went through.
Right.
And then when I got my work graduate visa, we started applying for my PR. And then since I had my master's in biomedical engineering, that's what we used to get my visa assessed. I
Mm-hmm.
was assessed under Engineers Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it went successfully. I got my skill assessment positively within 24 hours.
Wow.
And after that, I applied for my residency, which took about a month or so. So I became a PR in October 2017.
Wow, excellent, excellent. So it was not a smooth journey so far, but yeah, it was not that bumpy as well. Like if you minus this medical experience, then the rest of
Yeah.
was went
The other
smooth.
was like, yeah,
Yep, yep,
it was
that's
all
good,
right.
that's good. So, oh wow, okay. So you telling us that using a migration agent has benefited you more than your,
It has benefited me, but I know a lot of people who do all of this by themselves. Great,
yeah,
kudos to them. But my agent has been a lifesaver. I can't thank him enough.
right. No, this is for everybody, like when you you can drive a car, but you can't drive a bus, right? So yes, then when you're trying to get some help, professional help, that always less hassle, and because they got
Exactly.
expertise. So yep,
Exactly.
yep. So if it's
Exactly.
not your thing, then you better get help from someone, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Someone qualified. Yep, great. Okay, perfect. So that is a quite good journey, I would say. And you telling that you got residency in 1 month, right? And
One and
one
a half ish.
one and
Yeah.
a half, yeah,
Yeah.
and skill assessment in 1 day and all that.
Yeah.
These days, these things are not reality anymore. So it takes little long, not little longer. It's so much challenging these days. Time
Yeah.
consuming. I would say that. Yeah. So now then let's come to this part. Like what you advise someone who's trying to get into Australia, who's willing to come to Australia or trying to get a residency. What's your advice to them? Should they consider Australia or they should consider other countries? And why is Australia, if so?
Um, Krunal, what I would like to tell at the forefront is you have to start thinking even before you kind of getting into all this paperwork. Ask yourself this one question that am I intending for a long-term migration or a short-term migration?
Hmm,
That question and its clarity will itself help you.
hmm, hmm,
Because a lot of people then come here suddenly and they're not ready to kind of accept the life as it is.
Right.
Because for international students it's not that easy, right?
Hmm.
I've seen my friends working 3 jobs after full time at university,
Hmm.
just so that they don't have to keep asking money from their parents, right?
Right.
And I believe if you're working, it also helps you build inner strength and resilience. It helps you grow as an individual also. So before you're thinking of migrating, Australia is beautiful. Australia, I know we are a little isolated from the rest of the world. We are not landlocked like the US or the Europe, but
Hmm.
here people are very open and welcoming. Again, there's a caveat, there's a little bit of racism, but we can talk about that later. But
Hmm.
people, on my experience, I've had many helpful people willing to help, willing to kind of associate with you on a very positive level. But yes, it's not a bed of roses, right?
Hmm.
Finding
Hmm.
a job, you need to put in your best. You need to apply to organizations multiple times, prepare yourself for your interviews, keep editing your resume as and when to fit the position description of the job. It's not very easy. So you need to kind of consider all of these things. And of course, um, if you're migrating by yourself, then you have to build up a lot of mental strength.
Hmm.
And if you're migrating with a partner, then at least you have a source of partnership or someone you can rely on in weekdays. But for women like us, we just migrated by ourselves.
Hmm.
Everything is on us, right? Right now, paying the EMI, paying the bills, filling fuel for the car. If I don't do it, nobody does it for me. So
Right.
you have to prepare yourself mentally that will I be able to take on all of this?
Hmm.
And if the answer is that yes, let's just see how we go, then sure. And if these thoughts scare you or you say, nah, man, I'm fine where I am, then probably you need to kind of sit down, think about it long and hard, and then take the decision.
Right. Right. That's great. Yeah, good to know that. So when you arrived in Australia as an international student, even you were funded.
Yeah.
So what sort of, if you don't mind sharing, like what funding you get? Like, is it just for study or accommodation? What are what it includes basically?
So your student fees are completely waived off, Kunal. So you don't
Hmm.
have to pay any fees whatsoever.
Hmm.
And the scholarship is basically meant for your living expenses. You can
Right.
pay your accommodation. You can just a little bit. You can save if you plan your lifestyle properly.
Hmm.
And the stipend that I used to get back 10 years ago was enough. I never had to kind of touch wood ask my parents for
Wow.
additional funds. It just helped me pay my bills and helped me just look for groceries, eat my food. And I wasn't that person that who's eating outside every night.
Hmm.
So
Hmm. Hmm.
slowly and steadily I started cooking for myself. So and I was able to save up on a bit of funds as well. Having
Wow.
said that, I had enough fun as well.
Right.
It was not that I'm not going out, never having dinner outside, but it required a little bit of balance.
Right.
So all
So
depends on how confidently you want to spend your life. That's it.
No, great, great. So you are telling us that the university scholarship paid your tuition fees as well as your accommodation and living
Living
expenses.
expenses. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So during that 4 years of study, you don't have to spend significant amount of out of your pocket when you don't need, right?
Because my tuition fees is 100% waived off,
Oh,
right? So
wow.
I don't have to worry about at all. But yes, for PhD, if you can't finish your PhD within a stipulated time,
Mm-hmm.
then after a point of time, the university will charge you.
Right.
In
Right.
our group, I think my supervisor was very specific.
Mm-hmm.
Although we were given a scholarship for 4 years, but she was like, you have to wrap it up in 3.5 years max.
Oh,
Don't stretch it. So
right.
I think all the members in our group we had graduated within 3.5 years.
Wow.
So
Excellent.
it was pretty easy that way. Although we worked very hard.
No, of course, yes. You have to finish 6 months early, so yes, it's overload. So, what was your PhD about? Could you please share with us?
My specialization was in nanobiotechnology, Kunal, and
Hmm.
in simple terms, it is I worked on materials that we usually use for body implants,
Hmm.
and I had to kind of put some additional modifications on the top of the material in the nanoscale, right?
Wow.
To see how we can reduce the bacterial contamination of the implants. Because once when you put a knee implant or a hip implant inside your body, the internal bacteria which are already present in your body tend to kind of degrade the implant,
Hmm.
and then you have to go for a post implant operation just to remove it, again put another. So we wanted to see how best to reduce the bacterial attachment on the surface so that their longevity inside our body increases.
Right. So, okay, if you might not like this question, then we can remove it. But you have studied these significantly important studies in nanotechnology, which
Yeah.
the world needs the most. So, rather working in your field, why you choose this career?
Um, I did two projects, as I mentioned, Krunal, after PhD, but after that, COVID hit us,
Hmm.
right? And one of the main industries that were affected was the education industry in Australia, at
Hmm.
least. And at that point, I realized that I have to also broaden my horizon
Hmm.
and increase my skill set. And the organization where I work, the field where I work now, it also kind of deals a little bit with corrosion, which is kind of looking into material sciences, which I had also looked into previously.
Right.
So I thought, well, this is a good opportunity for me to bifurcate for a while. But
Hmm.
again, tomorrow, if an opportunity comes my way into the academic section, I might be happy to consider it. So I'm not closing myself.
Hmm.
I've kept myself open to options. It's just life as it takes me. Wherever it takes me, I'm happy to go.
Wow. Great. So, your podcast,
Yeah.
tell us more about it. What is it about? And see, I'm
Um,
learning here as well, but I think you've been doing it for a long time. So, can I get some useful tips as well?
that's very kind of you to have, but I'm sure you're more pro than me, but I'll try to put it in very simple words.
Yeah.
Um, I've always wanted to become a journalist,
Right. Okay.
but that did
That's where we're talking.
that
That's now
didn't
we're
happen.
talking. Okay.
That didn't happen. I had to take up science, and then engineering happened, and then for PhD happened, right? But then somewhere internally, that spark of speaking up and extempore and debating was actively present. Even now,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I love doing all these panel discussions.
All right.
So when we were in 2020 in one of the most severe lockdowns in Melbourne, I think it was the second one.
Hmm.
I was like, if I want to create an opportunity for myself
Hmm.
where create that platform where I have the liberty of choosing whatever topic I want to speak upon. And that's it. That's when I had this idea that I will make a podcast of my own.
Mm-hmm.
And from day zero, the vision was absolutely clear that I will use this platform to address all those stigmatized issues that we don't address in our South Asian communities.
Right.
And then when I had this idea, I pitched it to my two of my very close friends. And those ladies were very kind enough to say yes immediately. And then they were on board. And that's it. I think we started in August 2020. And it's been 2.5 years. We have discussed various issues like abortion, transgender rights, mental health, marital rape. And we kind of trying to push the envelope as more as we can.
Hmm.
And over this journey, we have met such amazing people, Kunal, such amazing journeys that I've heard of.
Mm-hmm.
It has broadened my mindset as an individual.
Great.
There's so much to learn from. There's so much goodness around me. So it's amazing. It's an amazing journey, Kunal. So yeah, I'm
Tell
learning
us,
as
tell
well.
us the most exciting thing you have experienced during your podcast thing.
Pranal, it's like this podcast is my firstborn child, right? So
Right.
with the firstborn child as a parent, you're always partial and biased. Like I am the same.
Yeah.
Every episode is very close to my heart.
Mm-hmm.
But the most exciting thing for me is when people trust me
Hmm.
to open up their most vulnerable side and
Hmm.
share their journey with me.
Right.
I think that is where I feel a little humbled that okay, I must be doing something good that this person has been able to trust me to share
Hmm.
their journey with me.
Hmm.
That is the best feeling that I get.
So could you please tell us like what is there? Like if somebody listen to the podcast, what's it includes? Like in
So
our
if you go on, yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
if you go on YouTube and look for coconut chats, you'll find a plethora of topics. And some of for me, I would want you to listen to a lot of mental health episodes that we have released.
Mm-hmm.
We have released a few episodes on transgender rights,
Mm-hmm.
gender fluidity that a lot of people these days I find have difficulty in understanding or even just relatability, right?
Yep.
We also discussed about marital rape and the effect of pornography in marriages. We've discussed about abortion rights. We've discussed about men's mental health and why they feel it hard to open up, why it's a struggle for them to open up emotionally.
Hmm.
So if you go on YouTube and you look us up, you'll find that we have around what close to 120, 130 odd conversations so far. And
Right.
it should help you give us an idea of which way we are headed. And the vision that I have for now is I want to take it to a level where more and more people feel empowered and feel connected with the work we are doing. And I want to kind of broaden the reach to the local Victorian and Australian community and globally. We are not just limited to
Hmm.
one country first. But that's the vision I have for the podcast now.
Oh,
And
great,
I'll
great,
see where it
excellent.
takes
Now,
from there.
the way you doing it's great. So, does your podcast includes live chats? So you talk to people who are in those issues earlier and they overcome.
Some of them are where they have overcome the issue,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the conversations where they're living the issue, and some of the
Hmm.
conversations where they have the issue but they haven't been able to open up. So we also have an option of giving anonymity to the guest,
Mm-hmm.
so that maybe they are not ready to open up to their friends and family now, but
Hmm.
they're spoken with us. But maybe this conversation will give them that strength that they need to go and talk to their friends and family.
Right.
So we are very flexible with the guests. We don't want to cause them any harm. We take due permission from them if they're comfortable, and only then we release the conversations.
Right. So out of those stories you talk and you chat with people, could you please
Yeah.
share one of few exciting things that you can?
You mean you want me to share a few topics that
Topics,
that
yes,
I've
you covered.
really
Yep, yep.
um I've spoken to two very amazing trans women.
Mm-hmm.
We spoke with one woman when she hadn't come out to the rest of the world,
Mm-hmm.
and now she's just scaled new highs. She's gotten married. On a personal level, I feel so happy for her. Um, we've spoken with a guest who had done her thesis on rape in marriages, and I, as an individual, I take extreme interest in the topic because I'm sure you're aware that in most of South Asian countries, it still hasn't been criminalized, right?
Hmm.
And I push the envelope, and I'm a strong advocate that this is something that we need to talk about. Um, we have also spoken with men about their mental health,
Hmm.
why they find it so difficult to open up to the women in their lives, and what causes it.
Right.
We recently spoke with an Afghan director who directs movies and whose movie was featured in South Asian Film Festival of Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And his movies talk about the status of children and women in Afghanistan. And to me, that's a big win because we all know what's happening in that part of the
Hmm.
world.
Hmm.
And it was such a pleasure. He's such a nice person, down to earth, and he spoke about his world. So although it's very hard for me to pick up one topic because it's my child, like every episode is very special and dear to my heart, but these are some of the things that have just broadened my thought process and just broadened my heart, have given me so much to learn from.
Hmm. Great. So how you approach your guests? So let's say if someone you trying to get someone on your podcast, do you approach them or do they approach you?
Sometimes they do, or sometimes we look them profile up on Instagram or the social media handles. We email them,
Mm-hmm.
or I might just directly send out official Instagram request on their request,
Mm-hmm.
or and that's how if they read it, we kind of talk. I give them an overview of how the podcast is. If and I always urge my guests to ask questions if they have to me to clarify their idea about what I'm trying to get them into.
Hmm.
So they ask some questions if they're not clear about anything, and then once we are both happy with how the platform is looking like, we decide upon a date and time to record, and then all our conversations are pre-recorded. So they also have that additional flexibility of editing and letting us know if they're happy, if they're not happy. And once when the guest is happy, we just release it as it is,
Yeah.
and we ask them to reach there, put in a few good words about us. That just helps us. So yeah.
Great, great, amazing. So, other than that, you said apart from podcasting, you do some anti-racial activity as well.
Krunal, I was very lucky that I got selected for a 3 month project that was being run within Victoria
Mm-hmm.
about amplifying community voices in the East, and it was an anti racism project.
Mm-hmm.
So they took us through different course materials. Basically, they took us through a wider understanding of what is racism
Mm-hmm.
and how to counter it, what is bystander effect, what can you do if a person is um, affected with racism. So once
mm,
the project was completed, we spoke our views in Box Hill Town Hall, where some members of the council were also present. And after that, we became five of us were selected for the project, and all of us are now anti-racism ambassadors in the community.
wow.
So that was to me a very insightful project because I also didn't know that racism could be so subtle, but
Mm.
it's evident now, it's all around us. So that helped me grow.
Can we talk more about it? Like, what is subtle racism, first of all?
Subtle racism is, I'll give you my life example, Krunal. Like,
Mm,
this is when I was just very new to my lab, and we had this tradition of going for lunch
mm,
for anyone's birthday.
yeah.
It was just 2 or 3 weeks I was in, and we were sitting for that members' lunch, and suddenly one of the senior members turns around and asks me, "Oh, how much did you score for IELTS exam?"
Mm,
And I didn't know where he was coming from. I just said, "Look, I scored a 8 or 9,"
mm,
and his jaw just dropped. He
mm,
asked me again, and everybody's sitting around on a lunch, and he's like, "How much did you score?" I said, "I 8. Why?" And he just smirks and laughs it off. And later, I got to know that he had to kind of give the exam once or twice to score whatever score he scored.
mm,
I never thought anything about it, but when I was going through the racism project, I realized, well, that was a lunch table we were sitting at.
mm.
He didn't have to know my IELTS score, right? Because the proof that I'm sitting on that table and he was well aware that I had received 100% scholarship
Mm,
should be proof enough that everything is fine on that side of things. My
right.
English is pretty okay, more than okay. The very fact that he had to ask me that question was subtle racism because he must have thought, oh, she's from South Asia. How good can her English be?
Correct.
So that is what I mean by very subtle exaggeration. It's not always saying, oh, you're brown, but
Mm,
it's just kind of circumventing the things by putting things in a very diplomatic way,
mm,
where things will strike you later that, wait, you didn't need to ask me that question.
right. Great. So, as an activist, what you do?
The first thing is, if as an activist tomorrow, hypothetically, you ask me the same question, I will very politely ask it back to you that, hey, Krunal, why do you think you need to know my score? So I'm letting the person know very clearly that
Mm,
that question is not welcome, right?
mm, mm,
And part two is, as a bystander, if I see someone else is being asked that question, the minimum I can do to help is ask that question. The person who's asking that, why are you asking this question to this person? Unless you're not their supervisor or it's not eminent for the visa procedure,
mm.
why is this question being asked? So
Right.
that much I can do as an anti-racism advocate.
Right. So, do you like as a anti racial activist? Do you counsel people? Like, do you talk to people who are victim, or you just be an activist, but like
Well,
in general society?
things, things like racism, it's very hard for people to even come and admit that, you know what, I had this problem,
Hmm. Mm,
especially with young females who've just arrived in the country, who are
mm.
international students. They might not be even aware that they're being addressed to racism.
Right.
So if somebody comes in, I'm more than happy to talk to them about that. Look, this is how you can protect yourself. This is how you can just terminate the conversation.
Mm,
But if not, I'm also even happy to go on discussions such as your platform, or we talk about racism on our platform to give a general overview that this is what is happening. This is how you should kind of take care of your mental health if somebody is bombarding you with unwanted questions. So I'm
mm.
happy either way. If someone comes up, I'm happy to talk to them or raise awareness on a generic level.
Right. So, okay, let's talk about it then. What are some more examples you can tell our audience that if they feel these sort of things, then this is called racism? Because yes, most of the people, as you said, when you arrive newly in the country, anywhere from the world, doesn't matter what color, what race, what gender you are. But so, could you please list some of the examples, like okay, when they face this, that is considered, like this example you just gave is was phenomenal, like people don't even get it at that point, like what was they been talked about. So could you please share some?
I think one more example, which one of my senior colleagues mentioned, is how our names. Sometimes people find it very difficult to pronounce our names.
Hmm.
Or we also have the same. If someone is coming to us from any other part of the country, we'll kind of try to shorten their names just to make things easier.
Hmm.
Now, with my name, It's easier for people to pronounce Chris, but the
Right.
kind of questions I face is, why is your name Chris?
Mm.
Have you added that name to make your Australian life easier? And then they will see my middle name and they'll say, why is your middle name Malika? It doesn't sound a Hindu name. Did
Mm.
your parents have an interfaith marriage? These questions are heavily on racism. Like,
Mm.
if you want to know me, ask me that, hey, how do I pronounce your name?
Mm.
How are
Mm.
you comfortable for me to use your name? Do you want me to refer to your first name, middle name, blah, blah, blah? And I think it's applicable to every one of us.
Mm.
If you can't pronounce somebody's name, somebody's family name, ask. Don't just assume.
Right.
And worse, don't ask unwanted questions on their face.
Mm.
Right? And the other thing is, Krunal, what I've also recently seen is more than the overall racism, there's more of an internal racism in our own communities,
Whoa.
right? We usually keep saying that Aussies, Australia is racist. But I have faced more internal community, like people often asking me, why are you not married?
Okay. Right.
And at this age, Kunal, I'm a little bit mature to see who's asking out of pure concern
Mm.
and who's asking just to take a dig at me,
Right.
right?
Right.
Some people will kind of judge you by the number of bedrooms you have in your house.
Mm.
Some people will judge you by what make of car you're stepping outside of. And this is nothing to do with Australians. My Australian colleagues are amazing. They never ask me, oh, one, they will just ask you once that, are you married? If you say no, that's the end of the conversation. They've
Mm.
never wanted to dig deep. Why are you not married? What happened? Blah, blah, blah. But the amount of sub questions that come to you in your internal community where you're supposed to seek refuge, right? Because
Mm.
for many people, they come out of their home country, look for their own communities to seek that safe place.
Correct.
But
Correct.
that safe place itself is bombarding you with questions that I
Yes.
don't know where to go, honestly.
Yeah. So where to go? Tell our audience where to go.
There's nowhere to go. You just have to stand up politely
Mm.
and just turn around and put the question to them that, you know what, may I ask, why are you asking this question?
Mm.
Because if a senior citizen, someone I know has the risk, I know a lot of senior citizens who gave me that love when I was new. They
Mm.
are almost like my parental figure.
Mm.
If they ask me anything, I know it's coming from a place of absolute care and concern,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
But I also know some of the questions that are coming from absolute place of sarcasm,
Mhm.
or that place of, that this woman, she says she's doing a lot of these things, but
Mm.
your personal life is all over the place. What are you doing? So
Right.
I can make that difference. So if you see that kind of intimidation coming your way, just turn around very politely and diplomatically and give them back the question that, why are you asking me this?
Mm.
And most of the times you will see that they don't have an answer to that question.
Right. Great. Great.
So,
So let's talk about, especially as you just mentioned, the girls. When a lot of single girls come here
sure.
and they trying to make their life in Australia and live their
Yeah.
Australian dream basically. So what are the struggles the girls faces here in Australia when they first arrive? What are their challenges? Could you please list, because you've been there? So
Um, Trunal, one thing that I never faced was, I come from Delhi, and we all know how Delhi is for women's safety. So I'm not getting
right.
there,
Yeah.
but Melbourne was always safe.
Safe.
Of
Great.
course, your safety is also in your hands. I never went wandering around at
Mm.
late at night, but all that, Melbourne is very safe.
Mm.
But the other things that women, young female students that I've heard during COVID was, they were being offered jobs in return of sexual advances, in return of sexual favors.
Mm.
And COVID was a time when we were desperately, some people who didn't have jobs, people lost a job, these girls, they were trying to make something meaningful.
Mm.
And these were men from our own internal community. They
Oh,
came up with such obscene offers.
how sad is that? Okay.
So I can only imagine the mental health these women must be in. So that is one thing you got to, and it takes time. For me, it has taken a lot of time to see through people
Hmm.
who's coming to you with a good intention and who's pretending to have a good intention but is malicious behind that.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
you please make sure that you take time to see through the intentions of the people, Or just ask yourself, why is this person being so kind to me?
Right.
Once you ask that question to yourself, you will start seeing signs and subtle
Hmm.
hints that answer that question.
Right.
And then mental health is something that I would heavily advocate upon,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that is gender neutral. Doesn't matter if it's a woman or
Yep.
any gender.
Yep.
I know this migration can be really daunting,
Hmm.
especially when you are new to university. And also, Krunal, universities work very differently in India or any other country in Australia.
Hmm.
So your work, then you have to do part time. So just take care of your mental health and physical health as well, and seek out.
Hmm.
For me, what happened was when I came here, I didn't know, I wasn't aware of any of these platforms like the ones that you've created, Kunal. Such beautiful platform where we can come and talk about our migrant journeys.
Hmm.
If we can have more of these platforms, Kunal, and we can ensure these young generation that yes, you can talk to us without being judged, we can give you that safe place to talk to and just vent out and share your experiences,
Hmm.
it helps. It
Yep.
definitely will help the young a lot.
Yep.
So I think these are the things that we as a community can offer to anyone who's coming here with dreams of making it worthwhile and meaningful while they migrate.
Hmm. Great. And what about getting into jobs? So let's say, have you ever heard the stories about first time getting into job industry and struggle and challenges in there, including language barrier, gender barrier, and all that?
I've heard a lot of stories, but one barrier that I had to face was in many of the job opportunities, I literally had to not mention the fact that I had a PhD.
Whoa.
Because before that, when I was writing that look, I have a PhD, the response usually was, you're overqualified.
Hmm.
Then I was suggested that, you know what, why don't you just not mention the fact that you have it?
Whoa.
Ethically, in my mind, I'm like, this is lying.
Yeah.
This is actually lying to the organization. I have a degree, and tomorrow, if they get to know, and they will get to know it because
Of
the
course.
reason they do a background check is they get to know about you. They will anyway found out that I was lying to get in.
Hmm.
And even if I get the job, I may be kind of disqualified, right?
Yeah.
But I was suggested by many people that just don't mention it.
Hmm.
And then I've
So,
heard from other, sorry.
okay, sorry. So you're telling us that when you're applying for a job, so you're
Mm.
overqualified because you have a PhD. So that means you are applying for the jobs which are non-PhD jobs, right?
See, postdoc is on a different level. A postdoctoral qualification these days is very hard to come by. At that time, I was applying, but when the PR came through and then the post, when I was like, okay, let's just move into a different field,
Yeah.
I was applying in a not a postdoctoral job,
All right. So that's where
but
I'm
then,
going. That's where I'm going. So
yeah.
what about the postdoctoral jobs? Like, are they heavily available or they're not available? What's going on there in that space?
There are very limited opportunities, Krunal.
Hmm.
And even if they are available, the competition is throat cutting competition.
Really? So even
Yeah,
after you finish your PhD, still the competition doesn't end.
it's very high.
Really?
Yeah, it's very
So
high.
is Australia producing that many PhD graduates, or why the competition is there? Because
The
for
competition is high because once a university or once your supervisor, excuse me, releases that postdoctoral opportunity,
Mhm.
not it's not only you who's applying, right?
Hmm.
Internationally, people are applying.
Oh, oh, so it's
So
not
now
just
you are
hmm,
in
hmm.
now you are in competition not with yourself or your lab members.
Right.
You are in competition with members from US, Europe, India, and there are like multiple applications for like two positions or one position. So
Hmm.
where then that's it. You have no guarantee that you are going to get the job.
Wow. I thought after PhD the life must be much easier. Wow, that's
Nah.
different. That's different.
If
Hmm.
yeah, if the difficulty level for a PhD application is of 6 on 10, then
Mhm.
the difficulty application for a postdoc and the probability of you getting it is like a 8 on 10, the
Oh,
difficulty level.
that's
So
hard.
it's that
That's
hard.
hard.
It is very hard.
Wow. All right.
It's very
And
hard. So
it's just in the science STEM field we're talking about, or it's everywhere, like all fields are
I
the
can
same.
only speak for STEM Tronal. I'm not aware of the other
Other
fields
side.
because
Okay.
most of me and my other peers were all from STEM.
Hmm.
So we can only give you the story about STEM. But yes, US, I believe, has a lot of opportunities, but moving from Australia to US is a decision that the individual has to make. A lot of people fly away, but if you're looking at a permanent residency, then again you're faced with this big challenge. Okay, do I make that move, or do I get the PR here, settle and look for jobs here? So a lot of different decisions have to be made by the individual on to what to do and what not to do in life.
Right. Okay. So, all right. So, and what you do for living, like your.
I work with the regional rail organization, Crown. It's
Hmm.
based in Melbourne, but we kind of look at the assets division of the rails and
Hmm.
how they're performing and just prepare reports and yeah.
Right. So, how did you go about settling in Australia? Let's say after residency, people start thinking about buying house and going moving forward to making family and like that
Mm.
happy sort of dream life that everybody's
Yeah.
aiming about. So, how's your settlement gone after residency?
So you've given me two channels. One is personal settlement, like relationships, and one is like building up in your assets. Which one would
Anything?
you like
Yes,
me
yes.
to?
Mainly
Okay,
assets building we talk about.
assets.
Yeah.
Um, the first asset that I owned was a car because, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a performer, right?
Mm.
So till 2019, I didn't have a car. So I use,
Right.
and Melbourne's public transport is amazing. I never had any problem.
Mm.
But it came to a point where I realized that you know a car will help me because sometimes I'm moving from point A to point B or I'm in my full performance costume. Then getting into a train in that costume is just very tedious.
Mm.
But as compared to that, if you have your own vehicle, you just get in and things get easier. So
Easy.
2019 was the first time when I had saved up, and again I had a lot of push from my mom and dad that please go get a car.
Mm.
I bought the car, and in 2021 I bought the house
Wow.
because at that time we were in COVID, but for somehow I do not work by external competition that oh that they have bought a house I have to buy it now.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that internal gut has to be confident that okay, I'm mentally, financially ready to
To have a
jump
house.
into real estate. And somehow I think the market that time was favorable. So yeah, that was the second asset that I just kind of got in, and yeah,
Right.
that's
Right.
two assets to my name.
Yep. So you came here to study in Melbourne, and you got your residency in Melbourne, and you bought a house in Melbourne. So have you thought about any other Australian cities to move around?
Never. Melbourne
Never?
has been first love.
Right. Great. Excellent. Excellent. So, so what is the biggest adjustment you have to make in order to get in Australia, is settle in Australia?
Being out of your comfort zone,
Hmm.
you know, because I was the only child.
Yeah.
My mom says that I was very pampered, although I like to disagree with her. But anyway, I had that safety net back home.
Hmm.
Anything I do, back then I was financially also careless because till the time I was in my NIT, my ATM always was filled up. Never had to worry about I have to fill in my bills.
Hmm.
Everything was taken care of. Flight tickets were being booked. The minute I stepped here, it's a different world. You're on your own,
Hmm.
metaphorically.
Hmm.
And the biggest important thing that you need to take care of is your finances.
Right.
If you don't plan out early, that's it. You will be drowning.
Hmm.
So the biggest arrangement I would say has to be that mentally you have to kind of be mature,
Hmm.
especially when it comes to finances, dealing with people, dealing with your own health. You got
Hmm.
to keep yourself sane. You got to keep your mind sane.
Yeah.
Back in COVID, I went through a bad phase.
Hmm.
And I realized that only yourself can pull you out. Nobody else can do that for
Nobody
you.
else. Yeah.
So these are some of the biggest challenges when your family is not around. Friends are family, but sometimes you need that comfort of your mom or dad or whatever. But emotional maturity is something that I would say is required if you
Hmm.
want to settle down in any Western country.
Yeah. Yeah. So, tell us how you develop those skills. Like when you jump to Australia, when you are by yourself. So first is financial planning, as you just mentioned, that financial planning you have to learn. So how did you work out your financial planning? So did you read something, or what was the way you learn, how you learn it?
Um, when I started as a PhD student, so we used to get a scholarship every fortnightly, and I think that is the payment structure. We get paid fortnightly in Victoria, right?
Hmm.
So I had a chat with my dad, and my dad has always been very meticulous with
Hmm.
our finances. So I get most of the inspiration from him.
Right.
He told me that, look, write down what are your top priorities, and always make sure they are taken care of as a level of top urgency.
Hmm.
Once they are taken care of, you can then start thinking about your extra luxuries, and always know the difference between need and want.
Hmm.
Your needs have to be primarily taken care of. Your wants can be even rested for that month,
Right.
and the next month you can work on them. So that's where, step by step, I kept learning that, okay, I'm getting X amount of money as my stipend for 2 weeks.
Hmm.
I have to survive on this and not just completely run out of funds. I have to pay my bills. So let me just first pay my bills. So that money is gone. Now what am I left with? This will be for my fruits, grocery, for my transport to go for my rehearsals. And then it's like, okay, one day if I want to buy a dress, of course I'll go and buy a dress. So
Hmm.
that way I started structuring my financial plans, and then tax came in. So that was another, okay, I have to talk to my tax agent, get that out of my way,
Hmm.
and then sort out my other finances. Then the car came in. So this month I have to pay my rego fee. That has to be done first and foremost. Then all of the things can. So that way now, though I have car, the EMI. So mental planning is like 24/7 going on. So
Great, great, great. Out of all these learnings you done in Australia,
hmm.
your PhD and your this financial learning and the house things and mortgage and all that, what was one of the most exciting thing you list, maybe one or two, that best thing happened to you in Australia?
I think the thing at number one would be the day I graduated,
Yeah.
because my mom always wanted to see that day, but unfortunately she wasn't here. But the
Hmm.
day I wore the cap and I graduated and I got the degree, it was like, you know, 3.5 years of absolute struggle,
Hmm.
giving me this little certificate and everybody calling me a doctor. That was like the best thing of all.
Yeah.
And anytime I bought assets, Krunal, because for now I just have one car and a house, but every time you save money and you buy something meaningful, it just gives you a certain amount of pride that I was able to do this on my own.
Hmm.
And I did not take anything from my parents, even when I was buying a car or even when I got a house.
Hmm.
I wanted to do this on my own,
Hmm.
completely on my own.
Yeah.
And touch wood, when I was able to do it, I was like, okay. I wasn't like floating above the clouds, but there was a little sense of achievement that, yeah, okay, pat on the back, that, okay, good on you,
Great.
you've done
Great.
something.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. So now, have you got your citizenship or not yet?
Yeah.
You got it? Okay. So, all right. So, are you think yourself as an Indian now or an Australian?
I'm on neutral grounds.
Neutral ground. Great. Yes, because yeah, what happens is like people convert themselves into Australian, and so that's where my next question gets in. That when you truly, believe that Australia is your home, can you share some story like, okay, on that day I realized now this is my home.
For that, Krunal, I don't need a passport to believe that Australia is a home. I
Hmm.
could have had an Indian passport and even felt Australia as home.
Hmm.
And now that I have an Australian passport, India will always remain in my heart, because
Right.
that gave me
That's your
my friends, that gave
birthplaces.
me everything, right?
Yeah.
That gave me that identity which I'm pulling now.
Hmm.
But when the moment I felt Australia as home, first when I felt that this is safe,
Hmm.
I can roam around without being having to look over my shoulder, without being stalked, without being judged. I
Hmm.
can do things my way, nobody's judging. That was one. And two, when my things started getting noticed, like I started performing, and people I never knew came up to me, appreciated that, oh, your dance was wonderful.
Hmm.
Now, when people don't know me, but they send me, oh, I've heard your podcast, it's amazing.
Hmm.
I have some friends, I've had the privilege of meeting some friends who are more than family now. They've taught me so much to know. Like, I tell them that without you guys, I would have drowned in the
Hmm.
first 6 months.
Yeah.
So these little things have kind of come together and made me feel at home.
Right. Hmm. And in your opinion, what is the best
Yeah.
way? What is the best way for an immigrant like us, to get involved with the Australian society or Australian culture?
I think talk to your local communities,
Hmm.
talk to the local library, engage yourself into what's happening in the council level. There are so many activities happening. Bring out your passion activities, join whatever you feel like joining, a salsa class, swimming, reading. There are heaps of activities happening around you.
Hmm.
Just try to engage and try to get in, try to gel in. That the other day I was reading a post on Facebook. There's this woman saying, oh, I'm a new mother, I want to mix with someone of my own community because I see all these white people around. And I told
Hmm.
her, look, you are in their country, they are
Hmm.
not in your country, right?
Correct.
You have got to mix with these people. They are human beings too. When we complain that, oh, they are being racist against them, we are often racist against them as well, and we are living on their land,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So talk to them, go out, say hello to your neighbor, probably bring, and I've done that. I've gotten a cake. I didn't bake it, I bought a piece of cake and gave it to my neighbors for Christmas. That's how you communicate. And I was overjoyed, Krunal, when the first wave of COVID hit. I didn't come out of the house for like 7 days.
Hmm.
One day I come out the door and I see a little note at the doorstep that, hey, these are your neighbors. We have noticed that you have to come out of the house for 7 days. Are you okay? And if you're not, just send us a list of the things you need from the grocery store. We'll give it to you.
Wow. Wow.
So, and they were Australian. They were not Indian. They were not brown, right? So
Hmm.
this is how you take one step. They will take two steps towards you. So you got to take one step. You can't keep sitting inside your house and expect everybody around me will know me. They will welcome me. You have to take that initiative yourself.
Yeah. Excellent.
Mm,
Excellent.
yeah.
It's good learning, right? So this is something everybody should learn, in our society, like how to engage yourself in Australian culture. So do you see a gap here, like as a migrant when we come, not just
Mm,
Indians, like let's say any cultural
yeah. Yeah.
backgrounds, when we come here as a migrant. Do we have that hesitation? Do the communities have that hesitation in getting mixed up with the Australian communities, or it's a smooth transition? How you see yes? What's in your opinion?
I think there's a gap, Kunal, because sometimes when people are coming from any country where English is not the first language, in
Yeah.
Australia, as English is the first language, right? The first inhibition that runs in our mind is, oh my God, is my English enough to be able to speak with them?
Right.
Because Aussies have a certain accent,
Hmm.
right? We don't.
Hmm.
So that is the first thing. And then sometimes even the way some people get up, that is a mindset, because here people dress up in a very different way. I can only speak for India because that's where I come from. We dress up in a certain way. So that can be a huge shock that, oh my God, what am I saying? People are very open when they're strolling, when they're on the beach.
Hmm.
You got to unlearn. You learn a lot of things from the country.
Hmm.
You got to put this in your mindset that I'm stepping foot on a new soil.
Hmm.
I might be met with things I've never seen, never heard before. So do I have mental capacity to absorb them
Hmm.
and not judge them, rather take in the good from them?
Right.
Right. I'll give you one example. Is here
Please.
I know signs of affection are very open around us. A couple in love around me, they might be sitting holding their hands. They might be just sitting together, enjoying their own time.
Hmm.
I've often seen people who are new migrants, and I'm not going to touch upon any particular country, but any new migrant, they'll keep staring. And I think that is obvious because from where you come from, you haven't seen. And if I speak of just India or South Asia, we have often been told that affection is something that should always be behind closed doors.
Right.
But you can keep abusing out in open. Well, that's a different story.
Hmm.
But here, that affection is very pure. They're holding their hands out of pure love and affection. Please don't stare. It's the way you're showing love. At least that person is not urinating on your face or in your mouth,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
That's something you can raise your voice against, or you can
Correct.
stare.
Hmm.
Let the person know, hey, what you're doing is not civil.
Hmm.
So these things, Maybe I was also, when I was a new student, I used to want, oh, I've never seen something like this in Delhi. But now I'm like, all right, they're in love. It's very sweet to see them like that. Leave them alone.
Hmm.
But these are little things that we need to unlearn.
Right.
Once we unlearn, we will automatically be more flexible and open to get into the society. That's
Hmm.
how I think I see it.
Hmm. So how struggleful was for you to get used to with these sort of customs, in Australian customs? Let's say you just said about one taboo topic that this is people keep staring, and so for you, like as a Indian girl, when you came here, how was your
Yeah.
transition? Was easy, or you struggled as well?
I didn't per se struggle. I just saw that, okay, this is the norm of the country. And they're not doing anything criminal,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
They're not hitting the partner, they are not urinating or defecating in public. They're doing something which is very pure.
Hmm.
And I have no rights whatsoever to balk at them.
Hmm.
It's their life. They are not disturbing you, don't disturb them.
Right.
Once I started practicing that mantra, I was pretty alright.
Hmm.
Because, yeah, it's their life. If they are letting me be, why should I intervene? And it's their land, right? I am the guest.
Hmm.
So I got to behave.
Hmm.
Behave as in I got to just kind of be mindful
Be
of
mindful,
someone's
yes.
privacy. Yeah. That's it. So yeah, it was alright.
Great. So you just telling us about your dancing career. Could you please elaborate?
I started learning dancing when I was 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think most of my achievements are thanks to my mom
Mm-hmm.
because I wouldn't have been half of what I am if she hadn't pushed me.
All right.
So I've learned my dance. I've learned Indian contemporary under the tutelage of Mrs. Tanushree Shankar, and she happens to be in the Shankar family. Like Uday, she is the daughter-in-law of late Ananda Shankar.
Oh.
Late Uday Shankar,
Mm-hmm.
and I learned from her for 6 years in Delhi.
Mm-hmm.
I had my graduation certificate from there, and after that, since I had to sit for boards and all that, so some way dancing took a stop for those 2 3 years. But I've always been performing, Krunal. But ever since I came in Melbourne, the first year I did nothing except lab and room.
Mm.
That was 2013. I used to go to the lab even on the weekends.
Right.
So one day my mom says that, look, you need to keep your sanity in check.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you network out, talk to people, and see if you can dance because you've learnt it, use it.
Mm.
And then I networked. The first association I interacted was the Bengali Association of Victoria. They have given me amazing love. Ample people I know now have become family. I spoke with them, and immediately there were people. Oh, you know, dance. We have these events. Come on, why don't you join us?
Mm.
We'll see what we can do.
Yep.
So my first on Melbourne performance was in 2014 for Bengali New Year.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2017, I formed my own group, which is Ananda Dance Group, and we specialize in fusion performances. Like we kind of tend to fix contemporary with probably Bharatanatyam or jazz or Kathak and try to bring something different to the table.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been alright so far. We've performed for Celebrate India multiple times for Diwali at that square. We've also been to Sydney and we performed for different organizations for their functions here and there. So
Oh.
it's alright.
So is that do you do shows, or you just perform in a cultural gatherings or
We do
something?
shows as well.
You do
We
shows.
do show. We just don't do a lot of Bollywood performances, but
Mm-hmm.
we do shows. But also all these associations, and when they're having their annual day or annual concert, we tend to perform there.
Right. So do you charge for that, or you just don't?
Now, I believe passion is something that comes from heart.
Wow.
So
Wow. So it's all nothing, no charges involved. You
it's
just do
love
it
for the
volunteer,
art.
not for the art.
It's
Wow.
love.
Wow. Amazing. And so if someone wants to contact you in that regards, what
Yeah.
are where they come, any website or anything?
I have a Facebook page which is just Ananda Dance Group.
Mm-hmm.
And if they can't find it, they can always get in touch with me. I'm on Facebook as Chris Malika Bhadra.
Mm-hmm.
And they can just send me a message and I'm happy to take the conversation from there.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so yes, anybody who's organizing such cultural events, then please invite Dr. Chris Bhadra. She is one of the art lover. So can you please tell us more about the dance form itself? Like what is Indian contemporary, um, for those who don't know.
Yeah, a lot of people actually don't know that.
Yeah.
Good question, that's fun. So, Indian, what is contemporary basically means how we were taught the dances. It's very fluid. Like if you look at Bharatanatyam and Kathak, they have their certain beats, and their dance posture and physique is very straight, right?
Hmm.
But for contemporary, we are very fluid. A lot of it depends on how we are moving different parts of our body, and our dances mostly are based on not on beats but on instrumental tracks.
Hmm.
So we are taught a lot to improvise. Like how our teachers used to come in was they used to teach us the first half of the music,
Hmm.
then used to just call us randomly. You come, listen to the music for 30 seconds, you put in your steps and teach it to the class.
Hmm.
So that way, we have learned how to kind of emote to that track, build a story, and improvise and choreograph on the go.
Wow.
So that is something that I think comes naturally. When I look at a music, when I listen to a music, I try to weave a story. What am I trying to portray to my audience?
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Because dancing just plain can be one form. I come, I dance, and I go. But if I come in, portray a message through my dance, and then talk to you via my steps, then you are able to connect with me. I am able to connect with you. So that is something that also keeps me going as a performer and as a choreographer. I always try to kind of think a bit beyond the box and see what else can we do. For example, one of the first performances that I did with my group in 2017
Hmm.
was where we blindfolded ourselves.
Wow.
So the 80% of the choreography was where all of us are blinded. And that piece involved a young child. She was, I think, 7 or 8 years old at the time.
Hmm.
Even she was blindfolded, and we removed that right at the very end of the performance. So that was something I envisaged when I first heard the track. That what extra can I do? What unique can I do with the piece that will leave the audience questioning that okay, is there a story behind the dance? So it's for me, it's always about conveying a message through what I'm performing on stage.
Hmm. So, do you have any YouTube channel for that as well, just in case the viewer wants to go and check it out?
If you just type Chris Bhadra on YouTube, you can find my dance videos there.
Wow.
So
Okay,
that should give
great.
you an idea.
Excellent. Excellent. So, how you see the future of this dance form? Are there many people doing it or very less?
This is the thing that I want to keep talking about in contemporary because when I first started, I what I saw was there was a gap.
Hmm.
A lot of people are very well aware with Bollywood dancing,
Yeah.
but no disrespect. But I would like to tell people that India is just not about Bollywood dancing. We have
Correct.
various different dance forms, right?
Yeah.
So the next step that comes to it that people are very well known to Bharatanatyam and Kathak, but contemporary is a kind of dance which is very fluid, which can weave a story around the dance, and it's not just one dance form that kind of you look at. We have that flexibility of fusing with different forms, and I have fused with a jazz artist myself.
Mm-hmm.
So we were 7 people, and she had one solo piece in our performance, and it was very well received. So if you just give us a little bit more of understanding, people just need to be a bit more open to it. I'm sure we can give you beautiful performances, something that can make you think,
Hmm.
something that comes with a message too.
Right.
So we just kind of need to keep talking about it and perform more.
Yeah. So, within your dance form, how you get a support? Do you get any support first of all from the not just Bengali community, any other like international communities in Melbourne or Aussie
Um,
communities or anything?
Not as such, Krunal, but also on that point, maybe I was so engulfed with my work and everything, like how life occupies you, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Where I should have put in more honors, written more applications about getting some sponsorship for my dance, which I'm planning to do from this year because a lot of people have also asked me that why don't you open a dance school, teach kids because this dance form is a little different.
Hmm.
But up till this now, I was involved with my work. I was in a very bad, some years ago, I was in a bad mental state, as I mentioned earlier, but now I'm seriously giving a thought about it. So probably I'll start writing more applications to see if we can get sponsored. And if that sponsor comes through, maybe I'll start teaching children. That's a different way to talk about this more in the community as well.
Right. Okay. So let's move on to our next segment about success. So,
Sure.
first question to you is, you see, in our opinion, you've been successful. You know, as a when you came in Australia and you settle yourself, you finish your PhD, you're doing a lot of things, and so do you consider yourself successful yet, or a lot more to come yet?
I would just like to use one quote that I believe on myself is miles to go before I sleep.
Right. Mm. Amazing. Amazing. Excellent. So still we expect a lot of other things, right?
It's just not beating hard. There's also a difference where people in that race for success beat themselves very badly. That I have to do it, I have to do this. For me, success, like I this was a conversation I was having with my mother a few days ago, is for me success is not like I have to buy 5 houses, right?
Hmm.
I have to buy 2 cars. This is, yeah, you, if you want you can, obviously. But for me success is, at this point of time, I want to see what good can I do to the community.
Hmm.
I have been given this place of privilege. I have been honored. I have a house over my head. I have a platform, such amazing platforms that you people give us, where I can voice my opinion. What good can I do utilizing these things so that one other woman or a man or the LGBT community can take advantage of and feel empowered? The
Right.
day when I see that I'm giving voice to any one of those people, I think I'll be able to call myself a tad bit successful.
Hmm.
That's what I look at now.
All right. And talking in general, let's say for a migrant, any migrant we're talking about,
Yeah.
what are the basic milestones that you can list out to be successful in Australia? Like, okay, I know it's really hard to make a some sort of milestones
Yeah.
to define a success, but still, having a good life, I would say not successful, but what is a good life in Australia, like average, when you say, okay, now you are at some sort of average level. What's your consideration about that?
Before answering that question, two things. Success is very relative.
Yeah,
What success means to you may or may not mean the same for me.
exactly.
And again, as you rightly mentioned, milestones are also very individualistic.
Hmm.
Your milestone might be completely different to me. But if I have to answer that question, if you want to feel accomplished, before that, make sure you're mentally healthy.
Hmm.
When I was doing my PhD, I had to give up on some of my personal relationships because those individuals were not very understanding of the fact that why was I doing my PhD. It was misunderstood as something else. That took a toll on my mental health. So you cannot be successful at the cost of compromising your own sanity.
Hmm.
Come to terms with your mental health. Let go of things that don't give you that peace, and then do things that you are comfortable doing. That can be anything, but don't hurt anyone.
Hmm.
Don't hurt anyone emotionally. Once you have taken care of all these things, I think you will already be set to succeed.
Yeah. Right. So success is pretty, and you described it pretty nicely, that it's relatively
Yeah,
relative, basically. Like success for someone is nothing for someone else. So yeah.
yeah.
For me, for example, when I came to Australia, I promised my parents that when I have 5 lakhs rupees, I will come back, and that never happened. So it is, like, and the desire and all that. So let's talk about that. What about the human desires? Like, have you seen that people, when they are in their home country and when they move to Australia, the level of greed get changed?
I've seen people greedy even in their home countries, Kunal.
But the achievement, like, that's what I see, and especially when people with families, like parents and kids are involved.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on that? Okay, you're single, so being a single is a good advantage, or having family and get yourself busy with that life is more advantageous.
Mm, very good question, Kunal. But I'll tell you what. Each it's the grass on either side of the river,
Hmm.
right? I'm a single woman of color. You can if you look at me from the outside world, oh, you have a house, you have a car, you have a job, you have a PhD. What more do you need, right?
Hmm.
But I might be thinking that, oh, I need a meaningful connection, because in life you're nothing without having a positive human connection, right?
Hmm.
That is the reason I get asked so very often that, oh, why don't you get married?
Hmm.
As if, I'm not saying that marriage is bad, but again, marriages do not mean that you're happily ever after.
No way.
But again, somebody in that scenario might be thinking, I'm all by myself.
Hmm.
I have a house, I have a husband, I have a child, but there is no one I can talk to.
Hmm.
So there is grass is green on the. It's like, we are just looking at each other from a distance.
Hmm.
You have some benefits, you have disadvantages, and so have I.
Hmm.
For a single woman like me, yes, I have that independence. Tomorrow, if I have a rehearsal, I can choose to be completely outside the house for the day and not think about, oh my god, I have a child waiting at home,
Hmm.
crying, or he's sick. I can completely focus on my dance. But again, sometimes I'm a human being. We always think that, oh, it would be nice to have a partner who's understanding, who's supportive. But this question, Krunal, you've like opened a Pandora's box, because with this generation, finding that meaningful alliance or partnership is like 10 times difficult than doing a PhD. I mean, like, I can happily do a PhD over again
Right.
rather than going and finding out a meaningful conversationalist, because it's just that hard these days.
Yeah. It is. It is. And see, in today's world, when the most important is, as you mentioned already, that connection and the trust.
Yeah. Yep.
It's really hard to believe in this digital world that what is what and what is the reality behind that pretty
Absolutely.
face or handsome suit, you know. So it's really difficult. So uh, what are the some sort of examples, or if you want to share, when you have to face this, you know, like when you look at the person, it's pretty different, and when you get to the reality, it's quite different.
I can write a whole thesis about
Oh,
this,
really?
but I'll try to summarize it.
Yeah, please.
It's very different, Ron,
Yeah.
because since the first point of contact is via social media,
Hmm.
the picture that everyone paints is very different. But when you start meeting someone once or twice, then those deeper levels start coming out. I'm not saying I am perfect, right? I have my own issues, but I tend to be very upfront and open right at the first day of the interaction that, look, this is how I am, and let me know if you have any issues. I'm happy. I'm as it is. I don't like to keep anything internally.
Hmm.
But I have met people who were very sweet on the first and the second meeting, very sweet to my parents. But after three or four meetings, the conversation took a turn where the person was screaming and shouting. Narcissism was an absolute peak of the conversation, to the point that I was threatened with suicide threats. I had panic attacks,
Wow.
and took such a bad toll on my mental health.
Hmm.
On the surface, there was nothing wrong. Mm, Everything was ticking off: education, asset, family background, whatever you want, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
But it's only when you start talking to the individuals you get to see what is not mentioned in the bio
Hmm.
or the CV or whatever you call it. And it's just dangerous.
It
It's
is.
just
It
dangerous.
is.
Yeah.
Not just that incident. Can we talk about that in general a little more? Like what you talking? So okay, I got it what you're talking about, but for people might not get it. So could you please tell, like, how the society is portrayed out there, and what is the second layer?
So I know, I'm sure Pranali, you and everyone knows about these dating sites and the matrimonial website. These are the things that the South Asian communities rely on, right?
Hmm.
So if you're looking, if you're talking to someone on the dating website, the first few conversations can be very sweet, like, what do you do for work, blah blah blah. Then suddenly the conversation will turn very sexual,
Hmm.
and that somehow becomes a tiny red flag, because
Hmm.
if I haven't met you, I have just been talking to you for like what, 1 or 2 days, why would I be so interested to know about your past? And this is very common.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
People are very, very interested to know about each other's past. It's okay, you can know about each other's past, but the questions have to be framed in a way to respect the other person's integrity as well.
Right.
If on your face they ask you, Kunal, what was your sexual history like?
Hmm. Hmm.
Or why are you, it's just, it will put you off at the very beginning that why is this woman being so personal all of a sudden?
Right.
The other thing is that I've realized is many people lie. They might be married, their partners might be overseas,
Hmm.
and they will tell you that they're single.
Hmm.
And this has happened to me once or twice. After two, three conversations, that I've just kind of picked up subtle signs here and there to see that, hey, hold on a minute, I don't think you're single. Are you married? And then once asked, they'll say, oh yeah, I'm married, but I'm looking for companion. I'm looking for friendship because my partner is overseas. That's
Hmm.
basically cheating, at least to me. I
Yeah.
might be old school.
Yeah.
And that happens. And I've been told that even these days on those matrimonial websites that we use, our parents use, many men, or women, I don't know, but men for sure, they lie. They are married, but they will just make the profile just to kind of talk to the woman and get the fun out of it. I don't know what fun you get out of emotionally playing with someone,
Hmm.
but these are some of the red flags that are happening these days with our generation. I don't know what the generation after us will do, but everybody is lonely. Again,
Hmm.
at the same time, everybody is scared of committing.
Hmm.
Everybody is depressed. Everybody has trauma. I don't know where we are headed. I don't know which way we are going.
Okay, okay. Can you please elaborate a little bit? Are you saying everybody is, having these issues? So
Yeah.
what you mean there? Sorry, but might be a question that that is sensitive, but yes, can we talk about
No, no. Anything that can help your listeners, anything that I can be of help.
it? Yeah.
Um, by trauma, I mean most of the since I do the podcast, I talk to a lot of people my age, younger to my age, a little bit older to my age. Intergenerational trauma is present because the way they've certainly come to realize that some of the way their parents treated them was not right. That has resulted in some kind of trauma which now they are going under therapy with. If they were married, they had a divorce, then that trauma adds on, then they are seeking therapy for that. They've had a breakup, they lived in but they had a breakup, that trauma seeps in. So it's like a lot of trauma most of us are dealing with, right? And
Hmm.
that trauma, what has that resulted in is we are scared of committing to the next person that comes our way because we are so bad. Most of us are so badly broken or wounded. Even if you come with me with pure intentions, I will start judging you and I'll be scared of committing myself to you that Kunal might hurt me again.
Hmm.
So let's just think of it. And thanks to social media, one of the pains of social media is you have multiple options, right? So on a dating website, at
Yeah.
the thumb of your finger, you have 10 people you can swipe right with. So even if you are in a committed relationship, you've had a fallout with your partner, you have 10 people who you can speak with.
Hmm.
So that onus of coming back, fixing things, I think is going down the drain because
Hmm.
people these days are like, I have options waiting for. Why should I even waste my time onto someone who's just kind of giving
So
me a bad day?
tell me about this. Okay, dating sites. I haven't spoke to someone about this. So
Yeah.
how is affecting the youth? Is it positive or going positive or better or it's not great? What is the scenario? Like I haven't been in touch with many people who use that dating site a lot
Yeah.
because different generations born little early. So what is happening right there?
Um, See, again, the use is relative, right? Somebody
Correct,
might have
correct.
had amazing experiences. The one good thing that I see is people have different options. Right
Mm,
now, we just don't have to get married to anyone our parents talk to and they say, oh, we've got this person for you, get married.
mm,
We have our own time, we have our own pool, we can look at, talk to 10 people before if in a nutshell, I have to answer that question, Krunal, it's like if I send you to a flower shop and I tell you, Krunal, can you please get me the best rose that you can find?
mm.
You get into the flower shop, it's filled with roses.
And get to the
Imagine the
best one.
confusion.
Right.
You
Yes.
like that one, you like that color better, you like the fragrance better. At the end of the day, you are like, I can't pick one.
Mm.
Everything is different. I like everything. That's exactly what is happening with these dating sites.
Wow. Wow. Insightful. Insightful. Like I don't have words to explain this
But
explanation.
again,
You did it
for
so
your
well. You
listeners,
did it so well.
now for your listeners, anyone trying to have a dating site experience, please have your own experience. This is basically based on just what my experience was.
Mhm.
I'm not demeaning anything. You're
Yeah,
more
that's
than
fine.
free to
So
do.
this is something we are not telling someone to do something. They have to use their own diligence
Exactly.
to use these websites. But okay, so and how much is the use that's happening these days? Is every youth is using these sorts of websites, or it just a class of people that using it?
I think most of the youth, Krunal, and even if in my generation, most of my friends are married. Even married people are using it.
Wow.
So youth, though, I would still say that okay, it's time for them to just go out in the world and experience themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Married people are on the dating side. Their partners are not even aware.
Oh, dangerous, right? It is. It is. It comes with these negative things as well, right?
So when someone asks me that, what do you think of? I know this is a little bit off topic, but I'll just summarize
That's
it.
okay. That's okay.
When someone asks them that, oh, what do you think of extramarital and blah blah blah, I said, look, cheating is so easy these days. You
Hmm.
don't have to go out the house and cheat, right? I could be sitting next to you.
Hmm.
I could be chatting with someone on the phone, and that I could still be cheating on you. That's how easy it is these days.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Absolutely.
that's why I said when I said that we don't know which way we are headed, honestly.
So in these days, like that's something is uncommon, right? Like someone it's not using this dating site, someone's not using these sorts of connecting sites to each other, not
Hmm.
just dating sites, connecting sites, I would say. And but how hard being a youth, being a new like 20, 30 year old in this era, how hard it is for a
Hmm.
youth to not get dragged into that world.
I think it's quite hard because the peer pressure is so strong, and
Hmm.
you feel that you left out. You heard the word, the phrase, right? You only live once, and fear of missing out, and all that jazz. It's quite hard because the
Hmm.
other side that happens is if you tell your friends that hey, I'm not on any social website, right? They'll start
Hmm.
reverse judging you. Why aren't you on any of these sites? What's wrong with you? Like, I've been
Hmm.
asked, but there was a time when I was writing my thesis, I had
Hmm.
deactivated my Facebook because it was a big distraction. So that
Hmm.
time when I used to speak with men on these dating websites or matrimonial purposes, the first question used to be, "Can I find you on Facebook?" And I used to
Hmm.
tell them, "Look, I'm not on Facebook for XYZ reason."
Hmm.
Why are you not on Facebook? Everybody is on Facebook these days. So you're judged either way.
Right.
If you're on social media, you'll be looked on, talked about. If you're not on social media, you're still judged because people will think something is wrong that in this day and era, this person is not on any social media and this person is like Gen Z or the millennials.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
It's like a double sword.
Okay. Thank you. You use the word Gen Z and millennials. So, uh, so let's talk about that. Like a lot of people, like most of them know about it. Like no, not that big group of people, but yes. Okay. So,
Yeah.
what's the difference you have observed in Gen Z and millennials? Um, Most likely these days, with this AI transiting and all that. What's your observation?
The good observation is these guys are very smart.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing.
Hmm.
They know what they want in life. Most of them.
Hmm.
The bad thing is these addictions also creep in very early,
Hmm.
be it social media addiction or substance addiction or whatever you want to term it,
Hmm.
because technology is all around you,
Yeah.
right? If you close one door, you get information through the other
Other
door.
one. Yeah.
Nothing is discrete anymore. One of the other disadvantages that I see is we are getting away from books, like reading physically books, because this is something I've been working on. That I was so addicted to Facebook for a while that books were just piling up. I
Hmm.
was a book lover. So
Right.
then I took a decision that okay, I'm going to dedicate X amount of time every day because I want to come back to my habit.
Hmm.
So while if you travel on a tram early morning to work, 9 out of 10 people will be on the phone.
Scrolling. Yeah.
Only you'll see one or two people actually opening up a hard copy and reading it.
Hmm.
That is a major problem. And the good thing is they're aware. They're aware and they are very vocal.
Hmm.
It took me a long time to be this vocal about it because earlier I used to think, oh my god, what will happen? What will be the repercussion? This generation, they don't care. If something is wrong,
Hmm.
they will speak about it.
Yeah.
And that is amazing. That is just amazing. We need that strength from them.
Hmm.
But again, they are like overexposed to it. That is why they're maturing very early.
Hmm.
Sometimes they bounce
Over-informed.
back to the
Over-informed,
over
right?
in.
Yeah.
Over,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know, God knows where it's going, with this AI and all that. It may be, it's, of course, if it's again due diligence, if they've been used correctly, then it will be a right use. If it's not been used correctly, then it will be a
But Kunal,
devastation.
how do you, because we are given a driverless car,
Hmm.
right? It's again, you don't know what happens. I have heard that there's a hotel in Japan which is operated entirely by robots.
Yeah, you're right.
The reception is a bot, the Vela boy is a bot. I would not even stay in that hotel. It is creepy to me, honestly.
Can you please tell me why is that? Sorry, your concern is, I got it, but can you elaborate a little bit?
I need human connection. If I'm living in a hotel
Hmm.
where I'm met at the reception by a robot, the Vela person is a robot, the kitchen chef is a robot. I don't want, I'm scared, honestly. I'm scared of, as you mentioned, where AI is taking us.
Hmm.
If I have the money tomorrow, I would never buy a automatic car.
Hmm.
No.
Why is that?
I would still like to buy something that I can control with my hands, with my mind.
So you
Why
you
do I need technology all around me?
right.
Right?
So you
We
don't want
have been
the
given.
technology to control you, like, okay, I'll be driving your car, I'll be doing this,
No,
I'll
I still
be
would like to drive my own car.
your own car,
Convenience.
right? So,
Technology is good. See, technology is the reason you and I are connecting, right?
hmm.
But I want to limit it to a certain extent in my life because I want that anonymity to remain with me, and I don't want to be subjugated to a place where I can't think of my mind at all.
Hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. We need to have that freedom, right? At
Of
at
course.
any cost, we need that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, so let's talk about this growth thing now. Let's say if some migrant came to Australia as a student or as a resident, and they just
Yeah.
recently moved to Australia and they want significant growth in their career or in their personal well-being. What are the stages they can go through and how they achieve it?
For your professional growth, Kunal, you have to kind of just not do the work you've been given.
Mm-hmm.
You have to think proactively
Yeah.
because of all the managers I've worked with, everyone has taught me to be proactive.
Hmm.
Here, people don't usually like reactivity.
Mm-hmm.
People like you to think ahead
Hmm.
and get yourself involved in extra courses that
Mm-hmm.
will be relevant to your workforce or relevant to your qualification and help you get an extra edge over the next job that you're eyeing.
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn Learning, for one, is a great example. There are amazing courses out there, and networking.
Yeah.
LinkedIn is an amazing networking opportunity. Be out there, put some posts, try to engage with people, attend seminars. A lot of organizations have seminars for their employees. Go there, talk to people,
Hmm.
put yourself out there, basically.
Right.
Because remaining in a nutshell doesn't help. You've
Hmm.
got to be out of your comfort zone. This is professionally and personally. You have to build your relationship, no matter if it's within the house or outside of it. You got to work on it
Hmm.
and ensure that you have the basic amount of communication and trust in it, because I think no relation works without these two things. Even if it's my best friend, my father, my husband, I got to be communicatable to them and I got to be trustworthy. I got to have that comfort with them. So if we have these, I think, and a balance is also kind of somewhere required, because don't bring work to your residence.
Hmm.
Switch off, spend time, and something that I very strongly advocate and believe in is having my personal time. At the end of the day, I should be having 30 minutes or 60 minutes to myself completely.
Hmm.
For me, it's either my podcasting or somewhere where I'm writing or my dance rehearsal. That time I just kind of lock myself. There's no other thought that's going in the mind.
Hmm.
That's just my own time. And that's how I kind of disengage and detox. So these things are, if you can take care of these things, I think you should be all right.
Good. Good. Excellent. Thank you so much for that. Okay. So growth is and as a country, how is Australia's growth? Do you see this raising inflation and housing crisis and all that coming more migrant? They're inviting more people. They're bringing more people just because of we lost a lot of people in COVID. So overall, as an
Yeah.
Australia country, do you see the growth here and within the country?
I can give you one example which should help me answer that question, Pranal. 10 years
Yep.
ago, when I used to go to Flinders, if
Hmm.
I'm standing at Flinders Street, I can see a little bit ahead on Swanson Street, right?
Hmm.
Now, if I stand at Flinders and if I look forward, I can only see heads. That many people have been added in the country.
Wow.
As far as the housing crisis and inflation, see, every country has been affected very badly by COVID.
Yep.
It does not depend, of course, we are facing a housing crisis, but the only phase of development will be how fast are we able to recover from it. If this prolongs, then I would say that is a cause of worry. But if we can get ourselves out of it, then I would say we are slowly progressing. It's a good sign.
Hmm.
And I believe we've opened the door for a lot of international students coming in, which is good because for 2 years we didn't have any influx, and that is the reason a lot of education sector also suffered. A lot of
Okay.
my colleagues I know lost their jobs. So once we have opened the doors, I think it's a symbiotic relation. We bring people in, automatically the internal relations or internal situation will also improve.
Hmm.
So it's a two-way process really.
Yep. So see, Australia is doing pretty good these days about migration and bringing more people, and hopefully the government gets succeed and a lot of other people get chance to get in the country. So, yeah. So let's say moving towards end of our podcast, I've got a few questions about immigration. So, what advice you give to someone who's considering to moving to Australia? So, what is the homework they should do before they start thinking to move to Australia?
Um, See, Australia is a multicultural, so I can't say that look up about the culture. We are flexible enough that most of us follow. You follow your faith, I follow my faith.
Yep.
The only homework that you want to be able to do is what kind of extra work that you can do, which relates to your past work experience. Which so if you're coming as a student, if you can take up one or two of those part-time jobs, it will just help you build up your CV, right?
Hmm.
Um, if you know how to learn a bicycle, great, because here we have amazing roads for bicycle riders. There is safety, it helps your health as well. Cooking, definitely, I can't stress on the important. I have blown up a pressure cooker because I was a horrible cook. Please learn something and come by yourself because this is a life skill. Nobody's going to cook for you here. And as I said, the only homework you can do for yourself is have that ability to unlearn things.
Hmm.
Let go of some things that you learned and just keep this in mind. I'm moving to a new country. They live life a certain way. They don't have to mold their life to suit me. I
Hmm.
might have to mold a little bit of my life so that I can be included in it. That's how you get inclusivity in the culture.
Right.
If this is done, then I think it should be all right.
Okay. Great. Great. Excellent. So now this is the question which I ask to each and every guest. Pretty common question. That if
Okay.
you have a superpower or if you have authority to change something in current Australian migration system, what changes would you like to bring?
Well, again, no disrespect to anyone, but
Yep.
I think this English testing system is something that takes a lot from the students' pockets.
Hmm.
I understand there's this requirement of that English testing ability, but we are already giving a lot of paperwork to document the fact that we have received education in English. And even if people who haven't received it in English, if the cost of that English test can be reduced a bit,
Hmm.
it would help. I know a friend who had to sit for PT, I think 12 or 13 times.
Whoa.
Imagine giving $330 every time.
Hmm.
So if
I
I
understand.
had that power, I would just reduce that cost to a nominal cost, because we need people, right? We need the migrants,
Hmm.
and they're coming in, they're giving us their time, they're leaving behind so much of their lives. So the little thing that we can help in that regard is just reducing the testing cost.
Right. So see, currently the migrant they are bringing in Australia, skilled migrant I'm talking about,
Yeah.
is around 195,000. So around 200,000 people they are bringing in.
Hmm.
Do you see that number is too much or too less?
I think it will we can tell that in the next 2 3 years from now, because you know what happens is when I use the Monash freeway,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes peak in the mornings or peak time in the evening,
Mm-hmm.
we're just jam packed, right? There's no
Right.
space for us. Even on 100, we are moving at 80 because cars are all filled. So we need to ask ourselves that question, that infrastructurally, have we built enough so that we can accommodate all these incoming people? Do we have enough roads? Do we have enough parking areas? Do we have enough hospitals and all those things? That tomorrow, if 200 grand people come in, that's not pressure on the people who are already inside the country.
Right. So on that note, do you believe that Australia has delayed the things quite much, in the terms of developing the country itself. Let's say every year 200,000 migrants plus students plus family visa holders. So there are a whole lot of people coming every
Yeah.
year, right? And we do not have built at the capacity, enough capacity to fit those people. Do you think so, or I'm wrong here?
I think what we have so far is all right, but again, you have these regional rail revival projects. The metro project is ramping up. You can see the metro works going on everywhere.
Hmm.
More and more properties are being, which is great.
Hmm.
But the only thing is, these two need to work in tandem.
Hmm.
You bring in people, but also these infrastructure build-ups need to happen simultaneously, so that there is space for everyone. There is chance and position and equal opportunities for everyone.
Right. So overall, just in few sentences, if I ask you that, are you happy with the overall Australian journey so far?
Krunal, only one thing, only one word that I have to use here is I am thankful,
Mhm.
and I'm full of gratitude.
Right.
Whatever life has given to me in whatever measure, I'm gratified.
Yeah.
Very, very thankful to the people, to the opportunities, even to the bad opportunities, because I failed, I got up, and it made me stronger. So,
Mm,
very, very thankful.
that's good. It's great attitude you have. All right. One more question about happiness. So, do you
Okay.
consider yourself happy right now?
I consider myself to be mentally at a place where I have peace.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm at a mentally peaceful, stable position, then I think I'm all right.
Yeah, great. And what are the keys to achieve that happiness or that mental state that you have already get there?
Um, First is love yourself. Don't beat yourself too hard.
Mm-hmm.
Two is you got to make very firm boundaries where about things that harm you or about things that cause you anxiety or give you trouble. You got to make boundaries for your own welfare.
Hmm.
And the most important fact is you have to keep reminding yourself that nobody or nothing is important, more important than your own self.
Yeah.
You came here alone, you have to leave this world all by yourself.
Hmm.
So why not love the body you are in? Why not love the mind you're in? Because if you don't love yourself, you can't expect others to do it.
Yeah. Absolutely. I just add one more thing. Never postpone joy whenever you have a chance.
Yes,
Yes. Always, always. Do love what you love. Basically, never postpone it.
exactly. Exactly.
Right. Okay. And does money buy happiness?
Such a diplomatic question,
Yeah.
Kunal. But yeah,
I'm
I've
talking
heard a
about
very famous.
happiness. I'm talking about happiness, not the luxuries, not the comfort zone.
No, but I've heard a very famous writing where the person said, "Look, if you're crying on a bicycle,
Hmm.
and if you're crying in a Mercedes car, you better cry inside a Mercedes car."
Hmm.
So sometimes money does give you that.
Money does give you happiness. Great, great. And last question of this podcast
Yeah.
is, what is the most valuable lesson you have learned in Australia after coming to Australia? I would say.
One of my friends very early on told me I was badgering her. Like I had to go to the post office or something, and she told me once that there's this PTV journey planner. She showed me everything. I saw that, but again, as I was freshly off the boat, how in back in the country we're very used to badgering
Handhold,
each other.
handhold, yes.
I went to her second time. She showed me again. I still didn't learn. I went to her the third time. She got annoyed because she was working. She said, "Look, I've showed you once. That should have been enough. And remember this, try to do things on your own. Ask for serious help only when you think you're in a very critical position."
Hmm.
Or the words she said was, "Only when you think you're just about to die, that's when you kind of seriously reach out and ask for help."
Hmm.
That sentence has stayed with me. I do ask for help. It's not that I've isolated myself, but from then on, I've learned to be independent. Like tomorrow, if my car is out of fuel or if it's stopped on the road, I know what to do by myself.
Hmm.
So that is the one thing that this country has taught me is to how to think on my toes and how to kind of take my decisions on the go,
Wow,
considering that I'm a one-man army.
excellent. The person who gave you advice must be the wisest person.
Oh, yeah, she's more than family to me.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. All right, Chris,
Thank
Dr. Chris, thank you for sparing that much time today.
you.
You spent nearly 2 hours. Thank you so much for that. It was pleasure
Pleasure.
meeting you, and your attitude towards life is amazing. Your work is amazing. Your philanthropy, your activism is awesome, awesome. And I can't
Thank you.
thank you enough for being on our podcast. And we'll welcome you to join whenever you get a chance next time.
Oh,
Most
would
welcome.
love to.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, and thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Cheers.